Hey there, my name's Kevin Unger. I'm a professional wedding photographer, and I have been for the last approximately 6-ish years, just over. And before that, I was assisting photographer, second shooting, editing, all of that fun stuff. So I've been in the wedding industry a while, and I've been able to learn how to shoot in that light, bright, and airy style. And I want to share that with you because I think way too often people overcomplicate it, and they say how you have to shoot film and you have to do all these. No, it's actually really, really simple. And I'm going to show you how. And we're going to talk about camera bodies, we're going to talk about settings, and we're going to talk about lenses. So let's get into it. Instead of talking about camera philosophy and like what cameras are good or bad or what you should and shouldn't do, I'll just tell you what we use. We use 2 Canon EOS Rs, and we just bought 1 EOS R6. Mind you, that's for a photographer who works for us, so that'll be her main working camera throughout this year and moving forward. The Canon EOS Rs are amazing cameras. The only really big downside that I've seen is it's got 1 card slot. Other than that, it's a phenomenal camera I've been using for the last 2 wedding seasons that is great in low light, and also in mirrorless cameras, they have what's called an electric viewfinder, so this way you're never going to miss a shot, and you'll see that when we talk about settings. It makes it really, really easy to take photos. The Canon EOS R6 pretty much just fixed all the little problems I had with the R because it's got 2 card slots. It's also a little bit better in low light, but I mean the R is still phenomenal in low light, and for the price, you can't beat it. So whether you get the R or the R6 for Canon, they're both just phenomenal cameras, and that's what we use. Now, let's talk about lenses. For lenses, I pretty much use the 50mm all day long, and I use the Sigma brand. I don't need the Canon one. I mean, I would like it, and maybe I'll get it one day, but I really don't need it, and the Sigma one's way cheaper, and we're adapting it to our camera bodies using the Canon EF to RF adapter. They're just so much cheaper. You can buy a 50mm for $1,000 Canadian. It's such a good price, and they allow us to shoot in really low apertures all day, which helps in low light situations or when you want to get that really blurry background. We also have other lenses, like we have the 35mm by Sigma, we also have the 85mm f1.4 by Sigma, and we have the Canon 16 and 35. We just rarely use them because the 50 is great, because if we need to get closer, take a few steps closer. If we need to get a little wider, take a few steps back. It's a great all-around lens, and it keeps our bags a lot lighter. The 35mm is typically for when we have a really big group photo that we need to get during like the family photo section, and that's really about it. Some people love using the 35 all day, just not our style, but if that's your kind of thing, it's a great lens for all day stuff. It's a little more documentarian style, that kind of thing. The 85mm we typically will use for candid photos during cocktail hour or during speeches, or if we need to be farther away during a ceremony because it's a big, big church and we don't want to be intrusive because the floors are going to be creaky and we don't want to be loud. So throw on that 85, get farther back, you get to that really nice compression, and you get that blurry background, which looks great. Now let's get to settings. We shoot in manual mode all day, and that just allows us to control everything. You could shoot in aperture priority. I know lots of people who do, and I don't really think there's anything wrong with it. I just think being able to know how to shoot in manual is a really good skill set to have. This means we're adjusting our white balance all day long. Not shooting auto white balance could seem annoying, and it is more work. It really actually is, but we want to get our photos to as close to the final product as humanly possible. Yes, after we're going to apply our preset to make it look even more filmy and add the grain and add those film colors, but in camera, we want to be able to get to the point where if we had to deliver JPEGs right out of camera, we could. There's not going to be a set shutter speed or ISO that you're going to stick with because it's going to change throughout the day. Because you could be in a darker room while doing the bride and groom preparation photos, while then you go outside and it's going to be super sunny and really harsh sun, or that it turns into overcast, and then you're into a dark reception venue where you're going to need to use flashes. So there's not a single set ISO or shutter speed. However, I would way rather bump up my ISO to add a little bit of grain instead of like having a lower shutter speed to the point where you're gonna get blur. Yeah, you can get artsy with the blur and everything like that, but for the most part, you're gonna wanna just like raise your shutter speed and raise your ISO. This way, the photos are going to turn out clear, and they're going to have those memories, and you can use those photos. And a huge bonus to shooting mirrorless cameras like the R, the RP, the R6, or the R5 is that the ISO performance is so good. Like, I'm not joking. I'm shooting this on the R6 and right now, and you could shoot a wedding day at 10,000 ISO and it could be totally usable. I'm not joking. It's crazy. When it comes to aperture, we love that blur and separating our subjects from the background. That's why we shoot prime lenses. It allows us to shoot at super low apertures so we can get that blurry background. This means almost the entire day with our 50mm, we're shooting at f1.8 to 2.2, but typically 1.8. When it comes to family photos, yeah, we're gonna raise that so we can get more people in focus, maybe raise it to 2.8 or even 3.2 if it's a really big family, because we want everyone in focus. But for the most part, we're shooting 2 people, or the focus is on 1 person while they're giving a speech, that kind of thing. And so we really want that blurry background that everyone loves in the wedding industry. So for that, we use prime lenses and we shoot at 1.8 nearly all day. Now you're probably wondering what autofocus setting should you use? For the longest time, and pretty much until like 2 weeks ago, I was just using like the single point autofocus where you just select where you want it to focus and it'll focus on that. Easy enough, right? Well, in the last couple of weeks, I've tried adding the face detection feature on the autofocus, and it's pretty amazing, at least on the R6. So you should test it on your camera. However, it didn't really miss a single photo, so we'll be using that much more as the season goes on. A bonus tip for you is to get a camera with 2 card slots. Me and my wife always shoot together, and our cameras only have 1, so it's okay because we're taking nearly identical photos throughout the day. But if you're a solo shooter, having the 2 card slots where you're shooting 1 RAW and then the other card you're backing up with JPEGs, it's gonna save you in case you ever have a card that corrupts. Well, there you have it. That's how we at Morning Light Photography take our wedding photos. If you ever have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I hope this has been helpful for you, and I'll talk to you soon.